got the tourists that come in, you've got the lovely prom.
Often in Blackpool it's sort of taken away for us and our stories are told by other people.
Streets that are in poor condition.
A lot of my work is really inspired by working class culture and how we can tell our own stories.
The town now has the highest rate of deaths related to drug misuse in England and Wales.
People underestimate us because we're just from little old Blackpool. We're surrounded by the arts.
There's nowhere like it really, it's unique.
I'm really proud of Blackpool.
So my name is Claire Griffiths and I'm a photographer in Blackpool, also known as CJ Griffiths Photography and Claire Wormsley Griffiths as well. And I work with lots of civic and arts organisations and I do projects as well, so I write project grants for Arts Council bids, usually related to Blackpool.
So yeah, I'm Nathan. I'm a writer. I write books, novels, poetry. I write and perform poetry. I also have recently written and performed or produced some music. I guess in a nutshell, I'm a storyteller.
Hi, my name is Gio. I'm 25 years old, Blackpool born and raised, but currently living in London as the lead video editor for the internet phenomenon Logan Paul and the fastest growing sports drink in history, Prime Hydration.
We have created our own drink company.
I think that was great, guys. I signed him. Prime's the official hydration partner of Bayern.
I don't think he makes it past 2 rounds. If it does, I'm going to break him and I'm going to embarrass the shit out of him.
He's going to gas out and I'm going to beat the shit out of him. He's an easy fight.
My name is Anthony Briscoe and I am a performance poet and multidisciplinary artist from Blackpool. That means that I don't just specialise in one art form, I actually specialise in a few, such as graphic design, motion graphics, facilitation.
And now I've been gone for so long, I can't remember who was wrong. All innocence is long gone. I pledge allegiance to a world of disbelief where I belong. Walking disaster, the son of all bastards. You regret you made me, it's too late to save me.
And then let's get that track ready. Perfect, wonderful. Yeah, we can pretty much start.
So I can only really speak from my own personal experience, but for me, growing up in Blackpool was both very fun and, to be honest, very ordinary. You know, I was lucky enough to be able to be raised in a very loving household, and I wasn't not aware of the poverty-stricken, more deprived side of the town. I mean, for most of my time growing up, my mum worked in social care, so I was very aware of it. I just didn't understand that other cities in the UK didn't have it as bad as we had.
Growing up in Blackpool is actually something that I'm incredibly proud of. I normally bill myself as a proud Sangronan, which is a term used to mean born from sand or live by the sea. Blackpool's often really well known for the seaside for historical reasons. You've got the tower, you've got the arcades, you've got Blackpool Pleasure Beach, you've got all the things that are known throughout UK as tourism, but you only have to step a few streets back from that to notice that that's not quite the case for the people who live there.
An iconic seaside town. Millions of holidaymakers flock to Blackpool every year to enjoy one of the country's most loved coastlines. But just a few streets away from the Golden Mile, there is real desperation.
Now, I'm originally from an estate called Grange Park, which is one of the most deprived areas of Blackpool, which is itself a deprived area of the UK.
Growing up in a town like Blackpool it's an interesting one because I'm really proud of Blackpool. I love Blackpool, you know, but I feel like I'm also qualified to talk about its challenges. One of the things that frustrates me about Blackpool is actually nothing to do with Blackpool itself. It's to do with how other people perceive it and choose to talk about it in newspapers and, you know, reports. And, you know, I question whether people have actually spent a significant amount of time here.
In terms of like Blackpool affecting my creativity, as I say, I never saw it as a deprived town. You got to understand, Blackpool is a tourist attraction, and in order to be a successful tourist attraction, you have to be creative and you have to find unique ways to bring tourists in every year. You know, you don't want families to go abroad, you don't want families to go to other cities in the UK. You want them to come to Blackpool, and that's what the council and other people in Blackpool are trying to figure out. How do we keep people here? How do we keep people spending money?
Now, how has it affected my art? What is very simple to explain here when it comes to my art is I am a dyslexic. I only got my diagnosis when I was in my last year of uni studying my PGCE. And so what I used the arts for was a form of communication, because I couldn't always work in terms of written communication because the information that was in my head struggled to get through the end of my arm onto a page. But when it came to the arts, when it came to performance specifically, because theatre was exactly where I went in with it, I was able to flourish in explaining who I was, what I thought, what I felt, understanding emotion. And for me, specifically, I find that the arts helps me understand the world somewhat differently to how a lot of people do. It's like a way of perceiving things. I see things as pictures in my mind rather than logical words at times.
It is being regenerated, especially around the front. Yeah, granted, maybe we could do with a little bit more inland, but there's so many creative spaces. Some of the best poets I know have come over to Blackpool and been shaken to their boots by the atmosphere at Bootleg. They're like, what? Is this really a poetry gig? It feels like somebody's about to get on somebody's shoulders in a minute and let a flare off, you know, the atmosphere, the appreciation of in our case, poetry on that night. But we've had, you know, a lot of people come to Blackpool and experience it for themselves and recognise that actually this is a really thriving scene. This is a really thriving place for the arts.
All my work is sort of influenced by the idea that we're often spoken about in a disparaging way. When I went to study art, I went to the south to study. I did a fine art degree where I found a photography darkroom, but I very much felt the north-south divide. At no point had I considered the class system when I went to university, but when I went to study art, I very much experienced it. After graduation, I worked in recruitment for quite a while, so I found people jobs in Blackpool. So again, I saw very much how business operated, the lack of opportunity for work in Blackpool. And so a lot of my work is really inspired by working class culture and how we can tell our own stories with photography or creativity, and that quite often in Blackpool it's sort of taken away for us and our stories are told by other people.
After all those questions last night, Rishi Sunak is facing more today after this video emerged of him speaking to Tory activists in Tunbridge Wells.
I managed to start changing the funding formulas to make sure that areas like this are getting the funding that they deserve. Because we inherited a bunch of formulas from the Labour Party that shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas, then that needed to be undone. I started the work of undoing that.
I feel very passionately about the cuts towards kind of artistic realms across schools or across communities or whatever that might be, because I have personally felt the power of the arts. Yeah, granted, a bit late in the day, but I got there just in time. I mean, discovering poetry probably saved my life in many respects. You know, I was at the pits of depression. I was struggling, you know, emotionally, financially, because we just had COVID, and I'd taken a bit of a gamble with a career choice, and COVID came and kind of messed with that. So poetry saved me. So I'm not just talking like, oh, it's a nice thing to do. I'm talking about it actually saved my life. So the power of the arts for me, it goes way beyond painting a nice painting.
I often think that one of the easiest things to cut is the arts, because a lot of people don't see it as important as they believe, as it actually is in society. So say, for example, do you remember lockdown? I'm sorry to bring that back, but if you remember that, where did we all go? We went to the arts. We went to places to explore things, to explain how we felt, and we used it in that time. We even started sticking things in windows in order to try and like cheer people up. It's the arts, and it comes to our defence countless times. Where does our economy really benefit? We're talking the West End, we're talking films, we're talking British stuff like Shakespeare. These things are built within us and our identity. If you wish to identify as a Brit, or any way you wish to identify from a cultural standpoint, it's there, it's huge. And I think to denounce the arts and to treat them in the way that they are, as an afterthought, as a waste of time, and stuff like that, makes it easier to cut funding to it.
I mean, it'd be a pretty dull place if there was no music, art, poetry, films, TV shows. It'd be a pretty dull place to live. So I think there's perhaps an unspoken assumption that all that stuff's just going to carry on, you know, but we can just shave a little bit more funding and a little bit more opportunities away. But there's going to come a point where it reaches breaking point, and we can't afford that. We can't afford that as a society, for me. Like I say, from an individual point of view, but from a collective point of view as well. So I feel very passionately about it. You know, young people finding opportunities to express themselves in various different degrees, that they're healthier young people. I'm not saying they're immune to problems, but have coping strategies that maybe some of the other subjects don't necessarily provide us, or certainly not as obviously anyway. Connection, sense of belonging, you know, pursuing your talents, all these kinds of things really help us. And I think we need to be very, very careful about what we do next with regards to the arts.
So I would definitely encourage students from Blackpool to pursue an art form, because I know what it feels like to wake up every morning in a job that is creatively fulfilling, and let me tell you something, you may need to bleep this, it's fucking awesome. And the only way I was able to do this was by disregarding the opinions of people that told me that there wasn't really any jobs in the field, that going to London was a waste of time, that the uni I was going to wasn't high up in the league tables. And I was just so passionate about what I was doing, and so motivated to improve my skill set, that I wanted to make sure that I was in a position where anyone would hire me because of my skills. And you know, the old saying goes, if you are really passionate about something, you'll never work a day in your life.
Lay heavy on the fact that you're from a town that is indicated as having no opportunity. When I write an arts application, I say I am a female living in a town that rates highest for all sorts of disparaging statistics. Give me some money. You told me I have nothing, so give me something. And that I would absolutely lay heavy on that, and not to be afraid of telling your story of Blackpool.
Because you might just surprise yourself. I never thought that I was creative in any stretch. Like I say, from 12 plus, just went out the window, and it's ended up being my job, my career. I am a much healthier person, having discovered the ability to express myself. And the arts aren't just for a certain group of people, they're for everyone. You know, anybody can access this. We don't need to wait for permission to say, oh, you're an arty kind of person, you can come in. You know, it doesn't work like that. Anybody can do this. So I would say to young people who maybe are considering or have never even considered the arts, certainly open your mind to the possibility that you may have an unspoken or unfound ability for an element of the arts, and it may just provide you with a hobby, an outlet, an opportunity to make friends and explore new kind of experiences, But it might just serve you up with a career and a life that you never really anticipated for yourself.
Get involved.
Okay, I think that's good. Boom.